Good evening or afternoon, everybody. Time for another day of working on the Dos Santos apartment homes project. It looks like the right screen is not sharing, so let me go ahead and update this. There we go. Okay. All right. So last time we left off, we were working on the login screen. You can see right here, I just did a quick npm seed command added. I went ahead and added a node seed.js command into my scripts. Outside of that, we are where we left off. So first things first, let's go ahead and get this app running again. And to do this, I will be going to cwsl start Postgres, sudo service PostgreSQL start, sudo service kill start. Oh, did I actually remember it? Unrecognized service. No, I did not. I think I'm getting closer though. Sudo service PostgreSQL start. Oh, I need to type it out more. Sudo service PostgreSQL start. Seems like I'm going to start remembering this soon though, so that's good. npm run start. Another terminal. npm run start. Is that really what I want to run? It is not. npm run start server. npm. Ooh. npm run start auth server. npm run build watch. Once I have all these three things running on 8000, 8001, and my front end is being updated, I can go into localhost 8000, it'll go into home, and now my app is more or less working. And when I type in jenryank226@gmail.com and pass in my password, which is, I think this is my password, and I click submit, I send this object with my email and password. Cool. So now from here, how do I go ahead and connect this over to my actual server API and actually start running some commands? So in order to do this, I actually need something called Axios, which we can see that's installed here as a dependency. Let's go ahead and reinstall that just because I'm not sure if I did that on stream. It was likely when I was just setting up this entire project as a whole. I was like, I need Axios, but npm install Axios. Excuse me. I really wish I got some water before I turn on the stream, but no worries. Now we've ensured that the Axios is installed, and now I need to run some API commands. Now, in order to interact with this properly, I also need a way to kind of save these values. I can start using my store to handle my auth information, to handle all this auth. So I can say like auth reducer, and say import auth reducer from auth. I'm going to save this. Obviously, auth reducer doesn't exist, so I'm going to have to create a new file called auth.js. And inside of here, now I can go ahead and kind of use Redux to give a lot of clarity to my code, so that a lot of these API calls will just be handled by this reducer. Hopefully it'll make more sense as I work through it, because it's been a bit of time since I've really connected an authorization to the front end. So hopefully this is going to make sense as I go through, and we'll try to look through the reasoning as we continue to build this part of the application out. First things first, auth reducer. So we can see it's not highlighted here, and this is. I'm going to assume this because this one actually has an export. So we can go ahead and just take this basic format right here. We need this create slice to create this reducer syntax. And in a previous live stream, we built out this new Redux format, this React Redux format. I'm not familiar with this, but I was able to work through it by looking through the documentation. So I'm still getting familiar. Luckily, this one is working. We have our functions exported under counterslice.actions, which are defined right here. So I'm still getting familiar with this setup. I need to lower the music, it's making it a little bit harder to think. And also, in case anyone was curious, what I'm listening to today is this lo-fi video game beats, and started off with a Pokemon one, which is nice, and a couple that I'm not too familiar with, but yeah, I don't know. I do enjoy coding while listening to lo-fi. So with this Redux tool, with the music lowered a little bit, at the beginning, we're using this Redux.js toolkit, which has a create slice function. And inside of this function, it looks like it takes in two arguments. It takes in an object, which is going to have the state, yes, it's going to have a name that associates with it and an initial state, which is saying, okay, when we first create this Redux store, what value is it going to hold? It's just going to hold values equal to 0. And then we have our actual functions in order to interact with this value. So this is the way that this newer version of Redux works. And honestly, I think it is really, really, really nice. I like it a lot. And our actions are being exported right here, and it's also being destructured in order for us to just know that we're exporting the functions themselves. Anyhow, really cool stuff. We want to get a similar we want to keep the same structure where we have this initial state, and maybe this initial state, what we'll actually go ahead and keep on to is just the ID, the ID of the user. So I'm going to have to think through this a little bit more. There are a couple places that we can store information. Obviously, one is this Redux store. The other is in our local, if we go here into our application, we can see we do have local storage that we can use to store a lot of useful data. And this is primarily where we're going to be saving like the refresh key and everything like that. So handling the refresh key or the refresh token and the authorization token is going to be stored in this local storage. So maybe I shouldn't get too ahead of myself. Let's see, auth slice, export auth slice dot reducer, and export auth slice dot actions. Initial state is going to be empty without any type of arguments. We can go ahead and save that, check our index.js, see if there's any changes here. There is not. Okay, maybe I just need to save it. So now that it's saved, it's able to find the functions. It's auth is added to the reducer list, but it's not like we're actually exporting anything at all, but it also shouldn't be breaking our app at this point. So if I just refresh this again, doesn't look like there's any errors coming out. So what happens when someone logs into the application? When someone sends this submit button, which we can see right here, when someone hits the submit button, on submit, we are running this function called handle submit. So inside of this handle submit, you can see here, I just kind of pseudocoded out, send to the database, send this information to the database, and do whatever you have to. And in this case, it looks like we're logging in, so we'd want to do like a finder compare and do this login function. So do we have anything that can handle that? Let's take a look at this auth and check the login. The login is going to be passed in an email and a password from the body, and then it's going to try to find one, compare the passwords, do all this fancy stuff, and send an access token and a refresh token. So let's go ahead and see if we can do this. Looks like auth login. We can see it right here, the full URL of what we're trying to do. So let's go ahead and see if we can do an Axios request to that and see what interaction we get. For now, let's not use Redux. We shouldn't use it if we don't have to, which is very important. So let's continue to build it out without the store and see how this works. If it works fine, then we don't necessarily need that, but it's good to, I just wanted to get this set up early in case the time comes that we do need it. Because setting up React to interact with Redux properly, I feel like it's best to just do it at the very beginning, and it's easy to take out. But adding it in after the application is all built out can get very confusing. Cool. So anyhow, yeah, let's go ahead and import the Axios from Axios. And then after I import it, I can go into my handle submit and say Axios dot, let's see, auth, Axios dot post. It's in that URL. And we can see here we have some guidance here. First, we pass in a string on what we want to look up or where we want to go. And then next is going to be our data. So now this is going to be our info. Let's see, an info is being saved and sent with React's local state, with the React state. So now we're console logging the info that we're sending off. We're actually sending it over here. And there's a third parameter we can add. I don't believe we need to request config. Yeah, I don't feel like we need anything like that. So we're going to send in this Axios request, and because we're interacting with the database here, we know we have to do some async work, and we should await this response, and then we should also save this info const. Let's see. We could also do some destructuring here. We can see that in our auth file, what we're sending back is going to hopefully be an object that has an access token and a refresh token. So first, let's go ahead and save this as data and say if data dot so right now we can see that what we're sending here is a lot of strings. What we actually want to do is send in an object, and I want to send in an object with like error. Because now if I do this, if I send errors whenever I'm wrong, if I send in an error, then I can send in an object with a key of error. So that way I can actually go into here and say if data.error exists, then then oof. So this is interesting. So now when I get an error, I could have some type of function that says, oh, display like an error message down over here. So let's do that. Let's see if we can figure out how to do that. There's hmm. What does the application look like? So one thing that I could do is I could have it show some like hidden div right here. Display hidden, CSS, display none. Without deleting and recreating them, take a look at our last example. Script uses display none as the default. Let's take a look at our React. Our actual auth component. So we have here this form that has all this information here. Before this, I could also have just like a div and style equals error style const error style is equal to. I don't want to do it like this. I have a separate CSS file. I could also have a separate JS file to save all these styles like this too. So that I have a lot of options on how I can format this. Um, let's see, class name, class name, class name. Let's see. This is just a error div. Get element with React. um, Sorry, I feel like I'm doing a lot of thinking to myself in my head, not too much actually just coding it out right now. So for this error div, I'm going to want to do a lot of things, but also see that I did a lot of styling in line. I also feel like I should be converting this over. Like style, input style. Input style is defined up here. Um, why is it not here? Now I can just say for every input, excuse me, input They side by side. Then border color is 293.24.125. Border radius is 3 pixels. Border width is 1 pixel. Adding 5 pixels, 10 pixels. Save that, get rid of input style. And I don't need these style tags anymore. Will this mess with my submit button? Let's see what happens. I'm just gonna save this. ID equals submit. This is going to overwrite it. So let's see what this form looks like now. Okay, cool. Looks just as it did before. All good. And so interact with it as I please. And what's this other? Do I have any other styles defined here? It looks like I don't, so I think that's it. Cool. Got rid of that. Got I added this error div right here. And now this should not be a class name, but rather a ID. After my submit, and have an ID of error div. And I will be right back. I need to use the bathroom. Alright, cool. Back ready for action. Got an extra glass of water just to stay hydrated. Let's see. Do not use empty rule sets. I agree. Let's not use empty rule sets. Okay, so let's go ahead and pick up where we left off, which is on this error div. Um, I wonder if I can look this up. I have an idea on how I want this error button to look like, but let's see. Error message CSS. Warning error. Background color. Color of the text. Yes. Image URL from Imgur. I don't really need that. But let's see. This is what I'm going to want. And I want to say display um display none. I guess I could just save it like this. Let's save this, see what it looks like, see if we get a box. We do not. And what if we fill this box with some text? This is the error message. Save. Put this back up again. This is the error message. The centering is absolutely horrendous. Border, margin, padding, background repeat, no repeat. Sure. I don't know why I need that. Background position, 10 pixels from the center. I don't have any background image or anything like that, so I don't need this. Save this. Still looks as terrible as before. Do I need the margin? Maybe I do. I have the margin. Let's see. Border, 1 pixels. This is the error message. So all of these contents are inside of this auth div, and this auth div is flex display. So it should all be centered. I say text align, center, save this, see what this does. Definitely doesn't center it. Why is it so off center? What is creating this additional space on the side? Oh, this padding. So this is going to be the inner padding right here. It's the error message. I actually want this to. Hmm, I just want this to take up the full width. Also, don't need this padding to be so huge. You just have like 5 pixels. I think it'll look fine. I gotta say, I don't really like the colors for this. The red seems, the background color seems a little dark, but it looks a lot lighter here. So why is it so dark over here? No, no, it is that dark. Let's go ahead and lighten this up a lot. Okay. Just give it a little bit of roundness to the edges, make it less harsh. Okay, cool. Now we have some kind of error message here. I even want this portion. That's a color, but I could live without it, I feel like. Don't need the border. Default display is inline. Okay. So now I have this iterative that displays a message, and in here I want to say style equals display. Puts in an object. None. So the additional power with having this style is that it's a lot easier to interact with this. So for this, the display is going to be default set as none. So if we save this, there's going to be nothing here. Um, and const let's see, error message, set error message equals use state. Going to be an empty string. So now if we get an error, then set error message data dot error. So now if we do get an error, we want to set the error message, and this also means now we can use a use effect. And let's see. Use effect. Have some type of callback function. And after that, inside of here, keep track of the error message. And if the error message changes, then what do we want to do? If the error message changes, what we want to do is put this display none to the const error style, that error style equals use state. And this is going to be an object that holds display none. And now I want to say set error style to an object that says display inline. And I also want to set a timer because I don't want this to hang around forever. I also want this to transition actually. Transition 0.5 second. Then I have the set error style that's going to set a transition as well onto this. And I'm going to set timer, which we're gonna pass in a callback function with how many milliseconds until it runs a timer. And if it does run the timer, then what I want this to do is set the error style to none. Error style. An object with a display of none. So at this point, I feel like I'm just theory crafting. So error style, error message. Now I'm using my error style, and error message is apparently being used somewhere. Where is it being used? Oh, that's right, in my up here. So I'm going to save all this information, see if anything's breaking, because now I added a lot more layers of stuff, and off the bat we can see that error does display for a short time, even though when we define use state, display is set as none. Do we still? Interesting. So let's use our console log. It looks like right as the application starts up, we are running this use effect. Use effect and entered. Save this, refresh this. Okay, so we don't want this. How to stop use effects on first render. Effect hook adds the ability to perform side effects from a functional component. It serves the same purpose as component did mount, component did update, and be unified into a single API. Example, guided percentage counter 0. So if error style exists, then do all this. Let's save that and see what happens. If error style, if error message. Okay, now this error message has to have a value in order for this to run, which is very true. I don't want it to display an empty error message ever. That should not happen. So I think I am good with that. I can remove this, save, and let's see. Our handle submit is now saying, okay, run this axios.post request. So let's go ahead and run this. Post auth login not found. Oh, we may run into some cores issues now that we're actually trying to pull this from localhost 8001. Let's save that and see what happens. Block by cores policy. Hmm. This is occurring because if we see here, auth server is actually using a separate auth app, which is in server index.js. Auth app is using this auth. So for the time being, what I can just do is say app right here, save this. These are some very temporary changes, hopefully. I don't want to deal with the cores issue right now. I can go ahead and do this. We'll have access to the authorization under the same domain, which is 8,000 instead of 8001. So if I submit now, let's see, I get a 400 bad request. The post, uncaught and promise, request failed. And so now what I want this to do is if I do get an error, let's see, console.log data. So let's see what we're getting when we submit a blank thing. We're not getting anything. We're just getting this bad data. Auth index.js. We're submitting a post request to auth login. Auth login is trying to find one. If it's not able to find one, then it is sending. Let's see. So the user doesn't exist, so we should have this object being sent back. Let's use Postman. It's over here. Okay, so since the 8000 auth login, and when I send the right data, I get the access token and everything. If I send the incorrect data, then I should be getting back this object error, incorrect password, please try again. And what happens if I just send nothing? I don't even find this ID. Unable. So in a Postman request, it looks like everything's working fine. Auth login 8000. And here I'm running my Axios request. Import Axios from Axios. Axios.post, auth login. Say submitting the info. Unable to find this user is what I'm hoping comes back. But when I try this on the actual server, I actually put okay, 26@gmail.com and I just enter in a random password. So I am getting the unauthorized post request. Huh. So I'm seeing this error message right here. Hmm. So when I try running my Axios post request here, it's not working at all. Um, so one thing that using Redux does help us with is it does give us middleware in order for us to interact with APIs better, I believe, because we have some additional middleware that we're able to apply that that helps everything run just a bit more smoothly. So I'm curious if this is going to be the answer to my problems. So for the time being, I'm going to peek here, see how we're integrating the counter. So we have import counter from the counter. That's being exported here. Okay, so this counter.js and this counter has use selector, use dispatch to let's see. Dispatch is being got like you're getting from use dispatch selector count. Okay. State.counter.value. So auth.js looks like I'm going to be needing the use selector and use dispatch. And use selector states dot auth.value is what I'm going to want here. Instead of this, I'm going to have auth as the name. You're going to have the initial state. It's going to be an object. All right, I'm gonna have to rely on this counter slice to help guide me through. So you have state and we have action. Action.payload. plus equal to action.payload. And payload is defined here. Payload. Increment by amount. You see the Action.payload, we did have something really similar previously, but let's see. Let's equal action.payload. So that's going to be whatever information is sent over. So looks like action.payload is going to be
Oh, help me out, dude. Dude, that's so awesome. I found it yesterday.
handle error. It's going to be the name of my reducers. Okay, just define it like this. Pass in state. State error equals action.payload. Handle error is now one of the actions, and inside of it we have an action.payload, which is probably going to be whatever argument we pass into it. So inside of our auth.error, or auth.value. Okay, auth.value is a count. This is in count. The auth.value is going to be an object, and from there I can say auth.error. I can say auth.error here. Now, when I want to use this dispatch, I just have to pass in the actual function. I want to run dispatch. All right. I'm going to save this real quickly and just make sure see if there's any errors that I'm going to get. Cannot read errors. Priority is undefined. Reading error. Auth.js. Auth component. Priority is undefined. Reading error. Auth.js 67. If auth object exists, I'm getting some strange errors. I'm getting something about us. About us. Expected token, expected a colon. I do not know what that means. Now we're back to getting the error message. So we're still never reaching this data error dot error. So we can't run this right here, but we can run a dispatch. So we can say dispatch login. Okay, I felt like this is what we really want. We want to log in right here. Okay. Let's see. Error message, set the error message. We're not even using the error message right now. So now I'm curious if updating auth right here in our Redux store is also going to update our React store because we are using React Redux. So I'm hoping that it does, but I'm not 100% certain. We have nowhere that we're updating this error style at this time. Where was this error style being used? Being used right there to hold our display, which is good. We should have that. And okay. So now, so far, we have our code. When we handle a push submit, we're running this dispatch login. So let's go ahead and actually make that. Dispatch login. login. So now we need to axios dot put, and you can see it automatically imported it right here. That's the interaction that I was hoping for. If it didn't work, I was gonna put it in again, but so we need to run a post request to auth login /auth /login. And what we're going to be passing in is the action.payload, I believe. This action.payload is whatever we're actually passing into our dispatch. And so what we need to do is we need to say this is an async function. We need to await this and then say const data equals whatever comes out of here. And then let's see, if data.error exists, then we want to action, or we want to reset the state. Let's take a look at our counter.js, our counter slice. Where's our counter slice? Counter slice, counter slice. State.value or state.error equals action.payload or data.error. So if we have an error, then we send that. Else, then it should be say state dot um let's see, API index.js, move that over here. So we're going to be sending refresh token and access token. I say error or access token, refresh token, error. The error exists, then go ahead and do this. Okay. So now I have this auth slice that still has an error right here. Format this. Save. Actions must be plain object. Use custom middleware for async actions. I do have to still use the Redux Dunk, it appears. When I create the store. Configure store async. Okay, let's try using this create async thunk. This is also from the toolkit. Create async thunk, configure store. Oh, wrong. Not this one. Here. No. And right here. So oh, let's see. Const function is so const variable is equal to create async thunk, which is a function, and this takes a string. Users fetch ID by status. Handle reducers, extra reducers. Auto generated action types per reducer. Extra reducers, builder. Add reducers for additional action types here and handle using as needed. Builder dot add case fetch user by ID. Not fulfilled. Add user entities dot push. That's very interesting. RTK Query is a powerful data fetching and caching tool. It is designed to simplify common cases for loading data in a web application, eliminating the need to handwrite data fetching and caching logic yourself. RTK Query is an optional add-on included in the Redux Toolkit package, and its functionality is built on top of the other API in Redux Toolkit. Web applications normally need to fetch data from a server in order to display it. They also need to make updates to the data, send those data updates to the server, keep the cached data in the client in sync with the data on the server. This is made more complicated by the need to implement other behaviors in today's applications. All these things. The Redux core has always been very minimal. It's up to the developer to write the actual knowledge. That means that Redux has never included anything to build in had anything built in to solve these use cases. The Redux docs have taught some common patterns for dispatching actions. Because the create async thunk API was designed to abstract that typical pattern. However, users still have to write significant amounts of reducer logic to manage the loading state and the cache data. Hmm. So as far as I can see, this create async thunk is going to be the better option for me. I need a more simpler, like I'm not looking to fetch from some external API or anything like that. I really just want an async thunk to be able to handle my async requests in order to access my database. Um, and sure, my auth application would hopefully be on a different server, and we need some cores to settle that. But I feel like that should be handled completely separately. Um, is a purpose-built data fetching and caching solution for Redux apps and can eliminate the need for any thunks. The way they word it here does seem like it's supposed to be more proper solution, and it's interesting just seeing some of this like TypeScript-esque, definitely TypeScript, like we have this interface and all these other things. Um, Okay, any case, sample usage. Create async thunk, import it from the toolkit. We define it up above here. For some reason, instead for async thunk, we have the actual address of where we want to go right here. But it's not like we're specifying a post request or anything like that. Does this show up anywhere else? Or is this just the only place? So it looks like it's mentioned here. Fetch user by ID. The thunk action creator that kicks the async tool you wrote. Fetch user ID. Second function, second argument. So first argument is a string. Second argument is an async function that takes in two arguments: user ID and thunk API. And then const response equals that return res.data. Seems a bit more complicated than I'd like. Like thunk results. So as far as I can see, doing it with this method makes adding in like a thunk middleware a lot more complicated than it used to be. Because async, try catch, const result action, promise result, checking errors after dispatching, handling thunk errors. something while running. Fetch by ID status. Fetch by ID status. Hmm. So it seems like Redux is going a lot more TypeScript-esque, which I'm starting to learn up about more, but I don't think I'm comfortable enough with it yet to really be able to fully understand the documentation. So for the time being, I feel like I need to clean this up so that I'm at a better stopping point. So let's go ahead and add some comments and um, try to make sure we're leaving off in a spot where we can pick back off of. So auth error, auth server, um, that's fine. We just want to edit our actual auth index file so that we do want it to send errors. Yes. Our index.js here. We do want this to go back to being set as the auth app for the auth routes. So we'll keep that the same. Index.js. I don't remember changing anything in here. That's right. We want to log in. We want to send error objects. Okay. Auth.js here. Auth access token. Hmm. Cut and promise data is not defined. Huh. Here's data not defined. Auth.js components, auth.js components, auth.js 38 was it? Console log data. Oh, okay. Uncut and promise. Components auth.js here. Data is not defined. 37 5. Cannot read properties of undefined. Okay, so now auth is not updating. Auth, we have our store. Auth, Name is auth login. We're sending Axios post request with the action.payload. Console.log. Error. Error. Version is undefined. Login. So this dispatch login does not seem to be running. Oh, I need to call login. See what happens now. So I hit submit. Non-serializable value is detected and stated in the path auth. Value is a promise that is pending. Take a look at reducer's handling in order this action type. It's highly recommended that you only put plain serializable objects and stuff in your primitive in your store. It's technically impossible to insert non-serializable in a share by doing so. If you're okay with anything here. Okay. So I don't want to promise. Is there something wrong with here?
Yo, Kevin. Yo, Kevin, you hungry?
All right. So this entire login function is an asynchronous function that we're trying to run this Axios post request on. And do I get an error and then okay. So we have a bona fide asynchronous function here, but it's possible that we're not able to look at the reducer handling this function, the action, I think it's action type. Server. Do this again. Give it a couple seconds. Refresh. Submit. Still not serializable. Okay. A non-serializable detected in. This is for percentage. Provide a few default minimum bank. I'm just going to need to commit this for now. I do need to head out. I need to call it a day for today, but looks like we're going to be doing a lot more deep diving into Redux and trying to see if we can get some asynchronous functions added into Redux so that we can handle it. It seems like we're gonna have to add some type of thunk middleware, which was what I was hoping that. What is this? The excuse me, that this configure store was supposed to help me alleviate some of that, but it seems like that is not necessarily the case with the Redux toolkit. I thought that I would have to do less with the async thunks and that it was sort of more built in as a default middleware. But after taking a look through the documentation, it seems like there is just a library called default middleware that looks like it's already been deprecated. So it's going to be quite a bit more research to try to figure out how what kind of would be a more ideal way to approach this entire situation, working with these async functions. But until then, thanks so much for joining me. Going to head out now, and yeah, peace.